Yes, you're welcome, Vice Chancellor. I've been given this opportunity to present to you the Vice Chancellor of the University of Rwanda. The Vice Chancellor of the University of Rwanda is Associate Professor Didas Kaihura. He holds a PhD from Utrecht University, Netherlands, a Master's degree in International Business Law from Utrecht University. Before being the Vice Chancellor, he was acting principal of the University of Rwanda College of Arts and Social Sciences. And before that, he was director of the Institute of Legal Practice and Development. But also before that, I think which is very important to me, he was the Dean of the School of Law of the University of Rwanda. I wouldn't go much into details, but we welcome you and we're happy that you're here. Thank you.
I'm sure there was a lot of pressure presenting me when I'm right there, but thank you so much for the summary presentation. Madam Guest of Honor, Dr. Charity Wiwawara, Principal State Attorney and Head of Department for International Justice and Judicial Cooperation at the Ministry of Justice, who is representing our Minister of Justice, who wasn't able to make it this morning with us. And ladies and gentlemen, allow me to associate myself with the protocol as was elaborated by the Dean of the School of Law. And I want to say a very good morning to you all. I'm pleased to join you today as we open this conference on business and human rights and constitutional changes in governments. I wanted to say that I think it is close to my heart and profession because of the fact that there is business, but that's the farthest I can go. The rest I am not so conversant because there is business and human rights and constitutional changes in governments. The rest I'm not sure, but at least business law, as you heard, is my area. And probably that will make me able to pick some good lessons from the conference. Let me first take this opportunity to welcome you all to this conference. In particular, as was said by those who spoke before me, welcome you to this beautiful city of Kigali and Rwanda at large. And in that case, now I'm welcoming you to the beautiful city of Kigali, where I also happen to be the chairman. And so, for those of you who have come to Rwanda for the first time, of course I start with you, welcome in a special way. And those of you who are coming for the second or many other times, karibuni tena. I hope you already feel at home, far from your respective countries, with delegates coming from all over Africa. I'm informed we have more than 50 countries represented, more than 50 universities represented, and perhaps some are coming from beyond Africa. It is very promising that we will have a meaningful conversation about two of the most topical human rights subjects in Africa, business and human rights, and then the other part, which is unconstitutional changes of government. This is something to which the University of Rwanda has always been committed to, because forums such as this help to promote debate and academic discourse, academic research, and nurture future jurists worthy of the name. Besides that, the conference is happening at the time when we have just concluded our elections in the country here. Some of you who came earlier, maybe you participated or you followed what was happening. And as you must have followed, even those of you who are not yet in the country, elections in Rwanda look a bit different from most of other systems around the world, because we take elections as a day, the election day as a day where we enjoy. Also because that's a day when we are given a chance to decide as Rwandans. And so I followed it on news where people were complaining. There were no fights, there were no throwing of stones against each other, there were no blockages and roadblocks in the roads. That's not the culture here. Maybe that is what is going to be also guiding your discussions during this conference. If I may, I'd like to say a few words about the themes of the conference without going into them in any great depth, because I know you have enough time. Speakers will get in that depth and accord the worthy justice to the themes. At a time when African countries and Rwanda in particular are striving to improve their business environment, an academic debate on the appropriate interactions between businesses and human rights is more necessary than ever. Most of the time, we see ourselves promoting businesses, countries struggle to promote businesses, but what follows when those businesses are established becomes like none of their businesses. And thereby, businesses end up abusing or mistreating those that actually are the customers and the clients of those businesses. As stated in the UN Guiding Principles on the Businesses and Human Rights, the traditional doctrine of corporate social responsibility is no longer the only guiding principle for companies. A three-pronged framework is now in place to ensure that companies are held accountable for human rights abuses. The question we need to ask ourselves is whether and where we stand in terms of implementing this framework, since it was adopted, and I believe, in 2011. Perhaps we will soon hear more on this subject from contributors whose articles deal with it in details. I'm sure maybe some of them will also have to mention about what is not so sweet in the ears of business people, where now there are those movements which promote the triple P, not to say public-private partnership, but rather planet, people, and profits. So it doesn't go well in the ears of those business people, but just imagine where you start up a business and you are expected to rank profits the last. You start with the planet, then the people, and then profit. About the unconstitutional changes of government, this is just a topical as an issue, particularly on our continent. Since the time of independence, our continent has been held back in its development, partly, I dare say, because of these bad practices in constitutional governments. A number of countries in Africa, particularly in West Africa, have recently fallen victim to this scourge. Like we are being drawn to get back to late 60s and early 70s, where coup d'etats were the order of the day. Needless to say, suspending a constitutional dispensation further undermines respect for human rights, which in many respects is not even what should be. On the other hand, what should be the fate of the country apparently held captive by the democratic elected but incompetent government? Should such situation ever justify an unconstitutional change of government? Once again, I do not wish to go into details as an expert, as the experts in the field will certainly have to, but everyone questions, even myself who is not an expert in that area, will have to question myself the same question. You just imagine, shall we keep, for example, a president just because he's been taken through an electoral process constitutionally, even when he or doesn't serve to the interests of the people? Shall we keep the president simply because he's having the title of president, yet he's not actually acting as a president, but someone else is remotely controlling whatever that president is doing in his country? What will happen if people do not want you as a president, even when you were democratically elected? I'm not trying to push you to any response or to my opinion, but I'm just questioning. I'm throwing so many questions to you to put it. Yesterday, I had a chance of following one very long address by one of those presidents, the presidents who unconstitutionally came to power, and I will not take or tell you what was my impression. But you may find that, I think during this conference, I was telling my colleagues, even though I'm not into human rights or constitutionalism and the like, but I've gotten obliged to write a piece, an article on constitutionalism, democracy, and good governance. And I want to interrogate these three very critical principles and try to understand what do they mean. Should we take them as we're traditionally taught, or we need to revisit and question those principles, those terms, maybe to widen them up a bit and make them fit and contextualized to our situations. Who would be happy to say, yes, we are okay? And again, last evening, my colleague who has traveled far and wide was telling me about several countries in Africa where systems there cannot decide by themselves. Actually, there are so-called systems, but actual systems are elsewhere, outside Africa, and they are the ones in control. But there is an assumption that there is democracy. So where are we as Africans? Shall we need to redefine by ourselves those three principles, or even come up with some other alternative principles that would be in competition with the traditional three principles: constitutionalism, democracy, and good governance? What do they mean to us as Africans? With those few, I once again want to say welcome. Welcome to Rwanda, welcome to the University of Rwanda, welcome to Kigali, and I wish you a wonderful conference. Thank you.